Hello, beekeepers. I'm Jim Tew, chatting with you pretty much in reference to an article I'll have coming out in March 2021. Of course, to me right now, I don't even know what the date is, middle of January or so. So I have to always admit that because right now you know the future and I don't. I always say that because I'm always aware that time has passed. Secondly, I don't know what to say about this technology. I'm not a young man. And late in life, we've all had to learn to Zoom and do whatever. In a way, I've really enjoyed doing it because I would never be able to chat with you just whimsically. As a much younger man, I did a lot of video work for Ohio State with professional university videographers, and they were perfectionists. If it went out with OSU's logo on it, it had to be MGM quality. So now everyone with a phone, a camera, and I've just got the old iPhone 6, I'm going to upgrade. Everybody with a phone is now a videographer. So we're all accustomed to this kind of grainy, casual format that we all do. So I'm jumping in here because I've got better cameras. And when the season changes, it's just not so cold and gray outside here in Ohio, we will get back out in the bee yard. But right now, it is more talking head. This is one of the setups I use for some of the Zoom calls that I do and Zoom presentations. And since it was already here and it doesn't require getting out the wireless mic and all the other things that makes a better production, I'm using this. So I hope you see this just as you and me having a friendly chat without you being real harsh about the quality of my technology or whatever. I'm not trying to be a movie star. I am just trying to talk about bees, which leads me into this. When am I just going on and on too much? I mean, how much have I said about that washboard movement behavior? Because I don't understand it. So I routinely, maybe once or twice a year, write yet another expose on it. So once I get something on my mind, I can't get it off my mind till I just punch myself out. It's just a characteristic of mine. It's one of those things that made me become a maniacal beekeeper all those years ago and then stay a maniacal beekeeper all through these years. And right now, I got robbing behavior on my mind because I don't understand it. And when you get to be on the short side of 73, the way I am, it's a good time now to ask questions if you're ever going to, or just say that some questions are never going to be asked. But the books all say, it's the beekeeper's fault, and they should open the colonies when there was no flow going, and you had comb in the yard and whatever. And all that's true, because that apiary is an artifact. And I came dangerously close to saying all this last month, but I just hadn't punched myself out this time last month. But robbing, I think, is so much more than that. I think it's an absolutely exquisite system for honeybees in this case. I'm staying with the honeybees only, to collect everything they can from the flowering plants that are in bloom and are producing. And then when that is over, then they will move to foraging on each other. And that makes sense. If you are a species that's trying to put your best foot forward for what is the unquestionably the greatest challenge of their existence, getting through 3 to 4 months of a foodless period as an insect, not hibernating. They're actually just sitting out there around their metabolic fire, and that metabolic fire is fueled with that honey that they've stored. So it makes no sense from a survival standpoint to have 3 or 4 so-so colonies go into winter when the species would have had a better chance for survival if 1 or 2 strong colonies had gone into the winter. So if you can just not be a beekeeper for a minute and look at what the bees are having to look at, it makes more sense when everything has stopped blooming, all the work has been done, and a little bit of resources were stored over here in the neighboring colony, which they know where it is. I believe that they know where their neighbors are, just as much as they know where swarm sites are for nest cavities and water sources. And I think they know right exactly where their neighbors are. So when that flow is over, then the second flow starts, and that is the resources in their neighboring colonies. And I'm speculated that during that time, all the colonies get checked, and those who can't resist it are the ones that succumb to robbing. But where I went on, because I've said all this in the last video, where I went on to even get deeper and deeper into this mire, was that what makes even more sense is look at the age of the bees that are doing it. They're the oldest bees in the colony, the foragers. They're not going to survive the winter anyway. Their career is over. Indeed, their life is almost over. So what better bee to send out? It's, in a way, it's a kamikaze type concept. Go out, fight to the death with your neighbors, those who can't defend it, get inside, loot the honey resources, and bring it back and give it to us. And you're probably going to be really beaten up because of those trips. Every trip you take, you're just going into a brawl. So you're going to have tattered wings, beaten up bodies. You might take a sting or two, have a tarsal claw torn off. I don't know, but it's not going to be an easy trip to make. And so what about all those that die? I mean, we've all seen them. Dead bees everywhere after a robbing attack. Well, the thing I don't know is how many bees left the colonies in general. Was it just the foraging force? Did the core of the nest stay home? So that being probably true, they just sent out this old group that was not going to add anything to the winter survival of that colony anyway. So even to the bitter end, it makes sense. That colony going into winter had the resources combined from all the other colonies that worked as hard as they could, all betting that they would end up on top. All didn't end up on top. Those few that did were the ones that had the lion's share of the resources, and they used the most expendable members of the colony to gather that hard to get resource at the bitter end. And then when all is said and done, the colony goes into winter with this youngest population of bees remaining and with the most honey they could gather from the neighborhood. So I have decided right here by myself that this robbing thing is not something that is beekeeper induced. We don't help. We really amplify it by putting all these colonies side by side. And instead of them having to fly several hundred yards, 1,000 yards, half mile to get to the neighboring colony, they just got to go right here. So we just made robbing much more convenient, but it was always there. And it was always a fact of bee life. I've said before, last month, that this is a fairy tale, but it's a fairy tale that I like much better than the fairy tale about the bees having nothing else to do, being bored, and the beekeeper opens the colony, and miraculously, these foragers that have been intimately trained to recognize flower parts and find nectaries are suddenly completely able to recognize the odor of honey in the air and move right into that and take over. I mean, I like my fairy tale better at this point. I'm going to finally step on the toes of some researchers somewhere who have done work on this, and they're going to call me up and say, hey, old man, you need to keep talking about building frames or whatever and not get outside your area of expertise. But I've enjoyed thinking about it very much. These books here behind me. I mean, you'd think everything in the world is in there. When you write a book, you're very restricted. This article I just wrote for editor Jerry, I'm at 2,000 words and 2 or 3 pictures. And normally what I submit would be more like 2,300 words. So there's a limit. You can't just go on and on and on the way I'm going to it here. If my wife is sitting beside me, she'll say, end this, Jim, end this. You need to let it go. You know, having said that, she's right. I do need to let it go. So next month, no more robbing. I promise. I'll work on something else. And it won't be washboard behavior. I'll do something else on top of that. But I'd like to show you a photo here of the homepage of a podcast that Kim Flodham and I are working on. I just told you how much I enjoy talking about bees, and Kim and I and the coordinator of this, Jeff Ott, have worked out a way for Kim and me just to talk about bees. It's not that we know everything about bees or we understand everything about bees. We just talk and discuss what we do know, don't know. Sometimes it's ideas we get from you. Sometimes it's ideas we get from ourselves. But we'd be happy to have you log in. We keep these things fairly brief, 15, no more than 20 minutes, sometimes less, depending on everything. But we would really be honored if you would just log in and have a listen. And if you want to comment on something that we said that was right, please do. And I expect you would also log in and tell us if we had said something wrong or that you didn't agree with. That would be okay too. This is all brand new. It's evolving. Be a part of that evolution, please. Tell us what works, tell us what doesn't work, tell us how we can make this useful. I appreciate it very much. Honeybee Obscura, and I've given you the URL for it there, and I've also got a QR code. So please have a look. Thank you so much for reading. Thank you for being a beekeeper. Thank you for having enough interest to sit through these kinds of episodes. Thank you for watching this low quality video. I'll look forward to seeing you next month. James Tew, telling you bye.